Hello, I am Emily Atkins, and this field-based activity number 4 is for Dr. Kokiko's class EDU 541 School and Society at Franciscan University. The field-based activity is on Proposition 3. Teachers are responsible for managing and monitoring student learning. Also, this activity is based on Trend 7, the percentage of American children living in families with incomes below the poverty line has increased continuously. Nearly 1 in 5 children are poor today. Finally, the field-based activity statement is as follows. Examine the National School Lunch Program, its impact on assisting students from poverty to overcome academic barriers, and its possibilities for an online school. Explain how the information gathered in this field-based activity may be helpful to you as a classroom teacher to treat students equitably and respect their cultural and family differences. To begin my research, I wanted to define poverty and risk factors. Poverty, as described by Jensen, is resulting from multiple adverse synergistic risk factors. And risk factors are described as unsupportive home life, low maternal education, tobacco or drug use, teen pregnancy, poor nutrition, poverty, and income. We will focus on poverty. As I began my study, I wanted to understand the National School Lunch Program because I did not have a very good understanding of what this program was. And I went onto the website, and child nutrition programs describe what the program is, and they stated the National School Lunch Program is a federally assisted meal program operating in over 100,000 public and nonprofit private schools and residential child care institutions. And then I needed a little more background to figure out how it worked. So again, on the fact sheet, it is an institution, an institution may decide to participate in the school lunch program. School districts and independent schools that choose to take part in the lunch program get cash subsidies and USDA foods from the U.S. Department of Agriculture for each meal they serve. In return, they must serve lunches that meet federal requirements, and they must offer free or reduced price lunches to eligible children. How many children have been served over the years? I found this statistic inspirational, and I wanted to share it. Since the National School Lunch Act began in 1946, this program has served over 224 billion lunches to students in need. So it shows the impact that the National School Lunch Program has on schools and specifically students in poverty. Now, when I started to think about the National School Lunch Program, I wanted to know, does PA Cyber participate? So I began asking my colleagues, so a few teachers through email and on Skype, and no one could give a straight answer. Everyone said no, they didn't think so, but no one was 100% sure. So then I decided to ask my supervisor through email. I emailed Michelle Poskin, and again, she could not give me a clear answer, which I found interesting. So she began researching for me, and then finally, with communication, came back, and this is the quote that I received. We do not serve lunch, so we do not participate in the National School Lunch Program. We do, however, utilize the National School Lunch Program income guidelines to collect survey data for E-rate, federal technology discounts, and for Title I program. The percentage of low-income families in our student population determines how much funding we receive for Title I and the level of discount we receive, the E-rate. As far as the state level, our low-income families are a subgroup for AYP purposes. So though we do not serve lunch at the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, we do use the survey to collect the data that helps us in other ways for funding and how we meet the students' needs. So then from there, I wanted to discuss with my field-based teacher, Christina Nelson, about some of these thoughts. Now, I didn't tell her what I heard from Michelle purposefully. I wanted to kind of get her opinion on the situation, and then our discussion after once I told her about my communication with Michelle. So I asked the first question: how do you identify students from poverty in the virtual classroom? I was very interested in this because I wanted to know how she does, because personally I don't have a concrete idea of how to do it in my classroom. So she says, while there are no techniques in place for PA Cyber, I have identified students from poverty in my classroom. I have found that students are from poverty through the parents sending me emails, as well as instructional supervisors letting me know about their situation. I do not go out of my way to find this out, but I have found on a few occasions that parents and instructional supervisors are open with this information with me. So her quote verbatim is interesting to me because it's exactly how I feel at the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School with identifying students in poverty. Then we went on to ask the next question: do you think PA Cyber would benefit from participating in the National School Lunch Program? Why or why not? And again, I didn't tell her if we did or if we didn't. She says, I do think that students of PA Cyber living in poverty would benefit from the National School Lunch Program. However, I do not know how it would be implemented. I think it would be difficult to implement this program, being that our students are scattered across the state of Pennsylvania, going to school at home. I would certainly love for this program to be available for students in poverty, but I'm just not sure how this could work in a cyber school setting. Perhaps there could be something similar to food stamps or a food voucher sent to students living in poverty. Great idea. It is a hard concept to make happen in a cyber charter program, but an interesting conversation to have. Finally, I asked Christina, Ms. Nelson, there are many ways teachers can connect with students in poverty, i.e. fostering relationships, showing students you are reliable, and forming trusting relationships. How do you help close the achievement gap in the virtual classroom between students in poverty and students in the middle class? I help to close the achievement gap between students in poverty and students in the middle class by making my classroom feel like a home. I try to get to know each student and show them I care each day by asking them how they are doing or how they did in a certain activity, such as a baseball game or dance competition. In my class, we are always being positive and uplifting one another to show that we are a family of learners who support one another. I always try to demonstrate that I care for each student, and I take the time to help any student who is not achieving well academically by offering tutoring. So from a Skype conversation, Christina and I discussed, are we as a VC effectively identifying students from poverty in the virtual classroom? And by the questions I asked via email to Ms. Nelson and the response I received from my supervisor really leads me to believe teachers are not as knowledgeable when it comes to this and the students that are in our classroom. Poverty goals that I would like to establish with this learning session and with my field-based activity is that I do want to treat all students equitably and respectfully. And it's an interesting thing to think that students in poverty have different needs. Payne states, reviewed by Osif Kofi, the average school operates from a middle-class stand, implementing middle-class rules and expectations. So we're thinking right now that students in poverty have these different needs. And if we are simply speaking to our students in middle-class language, and we are showing pictures that relate more to middle class, and we are setting goals that relate to middle class students, we are not effectively meeting the needs of the students in poverty. Number 2 states students living in poverty only know the child voice and the parent voice. They do not use the adult voice. Again, so how are we speaking to the students in poverty in the virtual classroom when mainly they only hear our voice? 3 states adults resolve conflicts by the flee or fight mode, never with the flow mode. So if we are having a student who's not participating and we're just trying to maybe get them to participate, but we're scaring them off, and we can't really see how they're reacting, causes some issues in the virtual classroom. Number four, lives in the present. The future does not exist. So we're setting these long-term goals in the virtual classroom. However, they're just thinking about today. Are they meeting their needs of today? Being proactive, goal setting, planning ahead do not exist. And number six is we'll work hard if they like you. They don't have those filters. So we want them to like us, and it's a little bit more difficult to build that rapport in the virtual classroom, but essential to meeting the needs of all students and treating them equally and respectfully in the classroom. So my goal would be to identify the students in poverty, to take the statistics that that PA Cyber gets and have them pass that out to the teachers so that we are able to see students in poverty, who they are, identify them, and then meet their individual needs throughout class. My second goal is related to Jensen, reviewed by Schenk, and that would be the share model. I'd like to utilize this in my classroom. So Jensen states that the share model is the S stands for skill building, the H is instilling hope, A is providing accommodations, R is establishing positive relationships and role models, and E is providing enrichments. I would like to meet all five aspects of the share model, but two that pop out that I would like to do most often in the virtual classroom is providing accommodations. If I'm able to do this for my students in poverty, I might meet their needs, and we could close that achievement gap that we so desperately need to do. And the second that pops out is establishing a positive relationship. Jensen also states this from many of his speeches, that building this relationship where the students come in and they trust you, and you respect them and they respect you, they're more willing to learn and more willing to try their best in the classroom, and therefore, again, closing that achievement gap that we need to in the virtual classroom. My references for field-based activity 4 are as follows. Thank you very much for viewing this screencast.